So what do you say to a woman to create attraction, to spark the vibe, to create chemistry between the two of you? More importantly, how do you avoid those nice guy conversations that fizzle out, that go nowhere, and never lead to a second date? That's what we're going to discuss in this video. Hi, I'm Bobby Rio, and in this video, I want to give you 5 conversation tactics that lead to the vibe, that spark attraction and create chemistry between you and the woman that you're just talking to. Now, I've been coaching guys for 12 years, and I know that one of the biggest frustrations that guys run into is not knowing what to say, not knowing how to have a conversation that moves from that friendly, platonic level to that flirtatious level where there's clearly chemistry being felt between the two of you. Now, for me, this was, in fact, my biggest struggle because as a natural introvert, it never came easy to me. I would get in front of a woman and I would always resort to those boring interview-style questions where the only thing I would know how to say on a date was, so, did you grow up around here? Do you have any brothers or sisters? So, what do you do for fun? And I would just spitball, question after question at her, and the date would end, right? 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours would go by, and I would feel like I didn't even get any closer with her than I did in the beginning of the date. And what I realized was that a lot of it had to do with the type of conversations that I was having, but more importantly, the method I was using to create attraction. In fact, I had no method, right? I went into it just thinking, well, if I look good enough and I'm kind of funny, she'll be attracted to me. And that doesn't work, right? If you don't have a conversation that creates the vibe, right? And this is really what I wrote, the vibe, because that's really what it's about. A woman doesn't walk away from a date with you or a conversation with you and have a checklist of everything that you said. She walks away going, did I feel the vibe? Was there chemistry there? Was there something between us, tangible? And how do you create that feeling? Well, that's what we're going to discuss right now. So I want to give you 5 tactics. And a lot of these tactics, the best part about them is that if you follow these tactics, you avoid nice guy conversations. So, and the first one is really, really critical. So tactic number 1 is you want to lead the vibe, okay? What do I mean by lead the vibe? I mean that as a man, it's your responsibility to lead the feeling of the conversation. A lot of times guys, nice guys, we start talking to a woman, especially if it's a woman that we're really attracted to, and we kind of look at her to set the tone. If she's kind of flirty with us, we're like, okay, I can be flirty with her. If she's, kind of a wilder girl and she says some wilder things, then we're like, okay, I can say some wilder things. On the other hand, what happens a lot of times if the girl is kind of, quiet or conservative, we tend to follow her lead. Basically what happens is we let her dictate the vibe of the conversation. And when you do that, you're giving her all the control of where it goes. And you never really want to do that because you're putting everything into her hands. And as the man, you want to take responsibility. So what do I mean by lead the vibe? I mean, so every conversation, and this is something that's true with people that you meet out. It doesn't necessarily mean just women, right? If you're at work and you're talking with a group of coworkers, there's always one person who sets the tone of the conversation, right? Maybe you're having a very professional conversation and then one of your coworkers makes a joke about drinking a beer and all of a sudden everybody's talking about how they need a drink and everybody's more relaxed. He led the vibe, right? Because he's the one who kind of brought that new topic in. And that's your job when you're talking to a woman. She's not going to do that. A lot of women are going to stick to a very PG realm. And as a man, you can go one of 2 ways, right? The nice guy, he's going to stick there, right? So if she's talking about puppy dogs and ice cream, he's going to talk about puppy dogs and ice cream. If she's asking him boring questions, he's going to answer her questions and he's going to ask her boring questions back. But what I'm telling you to do is you want to lead the vibe. So if she starts asking you boring questions, you can say something like, hey, hold on, let's come back to these questions later. I don't really feel like it's going to get either one of us to know each other better. Instead, just tell me what's your story, right? What's your deal? What's your story? And in that moment, you changed the vibe. Or maybe changing the vibe is saying something flirtatious, right? Because a lot of times when you're hanging out with a girl, she's not saying anything flirtatious to you, and we're like waiting for her to say, okay, it's okay now, you can flirt with me. But what I'm saying is, take the risk, take the conversational risk. Be the one to make the flirtatious comment. Be the one to make an off-color joke. Be the one to bring in some element of sexuality into the conversation. Don't wait for her to do it, because if you do, you're going to be waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and then the end of the date is going to come, or the end of the interaction is going to come, and you're going to leave her with no feeling like she got to know you, no feeling like there's any chemistry between you. So you always want to lead the vibe. Like I said, you can do that by, a time that I can remember doing this was I was talking to this woman, and she starts like asking me, so where did you go to college, and all these, and I'm like thinking to myself, this is not going to go anywhere, right? So I go, hey, I'll answer that in a second, but first I need your opinion on something. And I asked her a totally irrelevant question to what she was asking me, because it allowed me to steer the conversation away from these boring topics. And as a guy, that's your number one priority, is don't let her suck you into interview mode. It's really easy to go, so, do you have brothers and sisters? Oh, what did you study in college? Oh, but no attraction is going to be created in that realm, right? Why is no attraction going to be created in that realm? Because of number two, and that is make it intimate. In order for a woman to feel chemistry with you, there needs to be a feeling of intimacy. And the reason a lot of guys never get to that feeling of intimacy is because they make the conversation about everything except the two of you, right? If you're talking to a woman, the conversation should largely be focused on you and her's dynamic. But what a lot of guys do is they talk about travel, right? Maybe you're talking and she goes, oh, where do you like to travel? And you start telling her how your favorite places to travel is South America, and you're telling her about how much you love, Argentina. But what's happening there is, imagine there's a big spotlight above you. You're now focusing that spotlight on Argentina, right? Or maybe you ask her a question, so where did you grow up? Now you're focusing that conversation spotlight on her. Or maybe you're talking about your job. Now you're focusing it there. But chemistry doesn't happen in those realms. Chemistry happens when it's you and her focusing on each other. So a simple way to change that is, instead of asking her a question, is to make a statement about her, right? So a simple thing that I used to do is that anytime that you're talking to a woman let's say you're on a date with her, or you're just getting to know her, sometimes you'd say, where did you grow up, right? But by changing it to saying something like, you didn't grow up around here, did you? Now you've made a statement. Now you've given your reaction to her, your interpretation to her, which makes her curious. She's going to go, I didn't grow up around here. How did you know? And then you say something like, I could just tell, like, the way that you see the world is like very different than the typical New Jersey girl. I could tell you definitely didn't grow up in New Jersey. That's so refreshing, right? Now you told her how you view her, and that's intimate, right? We don't do that to strangers. Like, it's an intimate thing to tell somebody how we view them. So anytime that you do that, you're creating a sense of intimacy between you. Another thing that you can do to create intimacy, very simple, is use her name. So anytime you use somebody's name, it's a very intimate thing. So if you say, so Nicole, I could tell that you didn't grow up around here. Now you've done two things. You used her name, which is an intimate thing, but you've also told her how you view her, right? You've made a statement about her. And that's a very, very easy way to create a sense of intimacy. So next time you're hanging out, instead of asking a question, turn it into a statement. The next thing that you want to do, though, and this is really critical, is establish flirtation early. And this is sort of along the lines of leading the vibe. But what happens is, and I've been guilty of this, and I know that many, many of my students and clients are guilty of this, is they hang out with a woman, whether they're meeting her at a party or a bar, or maybe they're on a first date with her. And for the first 45 minutes of the conversation, they're having this very PG conversation. They're talking about, their jobs and their travels and their hobbies. And then they look at their watch and they're like, man, this date's coming to an end. There's no way I can go in for the kiss when we haven't even flirted yet. And then all of a sudden they're like, shit, how do I start flirting? But you've spent 45 minutes creating this non-flirtatious vibe. It's really hard to then shift gears, after 45 minutes to an hour of a friendly platonic conversation and then make the conversation flirtatious. So one of the things you always want to be very cautious of and very, very thoughtful to do early on is very early on, create that flirtatious vibe very, very early on. A lot of ways you can do it, right? One of the simplest ways you can do it is, again, to use a banter line or to give her a nickname. Like really early, if she says something, you can go, you're Trouble. I can just tell you're Trouble. You're one of those girls. I'm going to call you Trouble. And you just call her Trouble. And now you've given her a sort of a flirtatious nickname. It's code, right? It's like a secret language. Anytime you're teasing a girl, it's flirtation, right? So maybe if she says something early on, you go, you spent a lot of time in the library when you were a little kid, didn't you? Like, just tease her a little bit. Friendly teasing, right? It's not about being mean. It's about a friendly teasing, because friendly teasing really is flirting. It's the secret language. Like, when you do that, like, oh, we're flirting here. So the minute you do that, you've now established that. And now 30 minutes later or an hour later, you don't have to worry about it because it's already been established. You've already given her a nickname. You've bantered with her. You've teased her. If she tells you that she's a teacher, you say, give me your best mean girl, mean teacher face, right? Like, give it to me. Let me see. Oh, and you tease her about it. And now she knows you're flirting with her. Now she's not going, what's going on here? This guy's talking to me like I'm his sister. And that's what most guys do on a date. They talk to the woman like she's their sister, and then they wonder why they get a text from her like, the next day going, yeah, I don't think I want to go out with you again. You're really nice, but I'd rather be friends, right? And it's because you treated her like a friend. You didn't flirt with her. So you want to make sure that you establish flirtation early. You can do it with one simple banter line. I always tell guys that the best investment of your time is to learn how to spot things that a woman says that you can then use as banter. And I gave the example of Trouble because that's really simple. Is you just look for something that she says that you can twist it, right? It's all about twisting it. Be like, you're Trouble. I could just tell. I got to stay away from you. And right there you flirted. So, but the next thing you want to do, and this is, again, it's all about leading the vibe in a way, is demonstrating what I call cool vulnerability. Right? Cool vulnerability. And cool is a critical word there, because I've told people this concept, and if you don't add cool in front of it, it doesn't work. It's not about being vulnerable, right? A lot of guys go, Bobby, you told me to be vulnerable. I go, yeah, but vulnerability doesn't mean getting on a date and telling a woman how you had a shitty childhood and your mom didn't love you enough and your dad thought that, you never lived up to exact. That's vulnerable, but that's not cool vulnerable, right? The best way to learn how to be cool vulnerable is to watch late night TV. Because if you see guests like, actors, for instance, they come on there, athletes, all these people with really high status, they come on these late night talk shows, they sit down on, Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel or, Conan O'Brien, all these different shows over the years, and you watch what they do. They all tell cool vulnerability stories. So you're not going to tell a girl that your last girlfriend cheated on you and left you, and now you've been, drinking orange juice and holed up in your apartment for the last year and a half without socializing because you've been so depressed. That's vulnerable, but it's like bad, negative energy vulnerable. Cool vulnerable is like telling a girl how you're, in the first grade, you bought this girl a rose and she, whatever, right? That's cool vulnerable. Telling the story about how, I'll tell a girl how, my first girlfriend, I used to write her name on the back of my books, right? On the books, the cardboard bags that you put over books. And I would write like Bobby Loves and her name over and over again. And then one day my entire class, I walk into class and they all had seen the book and everybody was like, that's like a funny, vulnerable story, but it's like cool vulnerable. It's not like sad, pathetic vulnerable. Telling a story about how Matthew McConaughey told some story about how he was in this spelling bee when he was younger and he lost, but his mom like told him he won. So she like made him this, this like trophy of like Little Miss Texas Speller. And he used to be bragging about the trophy. And then one day like the thing fell off and he realized that like his mom made it for him. That's cool, vulnerable, right? It's like, it's just like a amusing story. You got to get really good at telling these type of stories. You don't want to veer into vulnerable, like, you know, my girlfriend cheated on me vulnerable. It's vulnerable of amusing, like watch late night TV and get good at telling those kind of stories. That will give you a huge advantage on dates because those are the kind of things that humanize you, right? Because she may feel flirtatiousness with you and she may feel a vibe, but when she walks away, you need to give her these little memory things. And the reason why guys like Matthew McConaughey and George Clooney and Brad Pitt and all these actors, they do that is because they humanize themselves. They tell these like very human stories so that the audience out there thinks of them not as these actors and these super high status people, but as these like human beings, and it makes them like them more and want to go see their movies. So if they're doing it for a reason, right? Their publicists are telling them what kind of stories to tell on these shows because it works, right? So the next thing you want to do is approve, not compliment, right? Very simple shift. Approve, not compliment. A lot of guys, when we're hanging out with a girl and it's going well, we automatically start gushing compliments. I can remember a time that I was out with this girl for the first time, and she was really adorable. This adorable Filipino girl. She was an actress. She was actually in the movie Hitch, which is ironic now. But and on the date, I started gushing compliments at her. And I'm like, you are so cute. And she was really cute. And I just couldn't stop telling her how cute she was. And I never got another date because when you gush compliments at a girl, it's a very nice guy behavior. So then the question that people ask me is, well, if I'm not supposed to compliment her, well, how do I let her know that I'm interested in her? Well, you compliment her in a way that approves of her, that you still maintain your status and you don't give it all away, right? So an example of approving with her is saying something like, I love the way that outfit looks on you. Now you're not like telling her you're gorgeous. You're saying, I love the way that outfit looks on you, right? You're you're approving of the outfit she's wearing. Another thing that you can say to a woman is something along the lines of like, I hate you for making me so attracted to you, right? I hate that you're making me, I hate that you're being so sexy. I can't think of anything else right now. How am I supposed to concentrate tonight on the play that we're going to see when you're dressed like that? Now, that compliment is, again, the reason these kind of compliments work is because it's making it intimate, right? It's you complimenting her in an intimate way. That perfume that you're wearing is driving me crazy, right? It's her perfume driving you crazy. That smile that you just gave is very, very seductive, and I am not going to be able to concentrate on anything for the rest of the night if you keep doing that. It's about you and her, right? It's not you going, you're so cute. Oh my God, you have the most beautiful eyes in the world. That's nice guy compliments. Complimenting in this way is you approving of her. And women want to be approved of, right? It's like guys think, I didn't compliment her. Well, then how the frig did she know that you wanted to be with her? She didn't. You have to compliment her, but you have to do it in the right way. So those are 5 tactics that you can start out, right? Lead the vibe. That means take some conversational risks. If the conversation is going in this sort of dead-end way, lead it out of there. Make it intimate. Tell her things about herself. Make a comment about her. Tell her how you view her. Say, you walk around, when you walked in here, you just look so sophisticated. I got kind of scared. I got kind of nervous. You kind of have this like sophisticated energy. Now you're telling her, you and her, how you view her. Establish flirtation really easy. Give her a nickname early on, use a banter line, tease her about something. Cool vulnerability. Have stories about, examples that I used to do is I would joke around about my, when I was little, I went to this sleepaway camp, this Boy Scout camp that was like a nightmare for me because I'm like not a Boy Scout type guy. And I'll tell stories like that, or I'll make a joke about, I love cheesy 80s music. So telling a story about me at like a cheesy 80s, like a White Snake concert, like that's like vulnerability, but it's not pathetic vulnerability, right? Pathetic vulnerability is fine when you're in a long-term relationship and you open up, but you don't want to do that on a first or second date. And then compliment through approval. So now, if conversation doesn't come naturally to you, like it didn't for me, like I said, I'm a natural introvert. I had to learn all of this stuff. I had to learn it by watching people who were naturally good at it. And over time, I've been able to develop tactics that work for me. If you fall into that realm, I have a book called Charismatic Conversation Secrets. It's less than $10. It's almost 200 pages of tactics just like this. I mean, literally, I think there's like 110 different tactics. There's a link below, Charismatic Conversation Secrets. It definitely, if you like examples too, it's filled with examples, right? In this video, I try to keep it quick. In the book itself, you get dozens and dozens for each tactic. You get examples of exactly what to say, exactly how to deliver the line. Again, if you like this video, make sure you hit subscribe. Leave me a comment on what you'd like to see me cover in my next video.